Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Dear Christiano. Now, I think I'm lonelier than I sometimes admit. And yes, we're going deep today. And I think that I might have finally started to understand why that is. Now, I'm not the person who no longer needs everyone to understand me or to like me or to even think about me. But I do still deeply long to be truly understood by the right people. And the struggle I have is that sometimes finding the right people is difficult. Now, the topic of loneliness has come up for me to talk about this episode because the last couple of weeks, my partner David's family, his mother and his auntie came to visit, which was lovely. I've met them before. This is probably the fourth time that I've met them. They've come to Bali a couple of times. I've been to the village once, and they don't speak a word of English, right? Which is normal. They're Indonesian. They grew up in the middle of Indonesia. They're not going to need to learn another language. Um, and me, I struggle to learn different languages. I've tried to learn Spanish before. I've been and continuing to try to learn Bahasa, which is Indonesian. For those of you who don't understand that, and I struggle with it. Now I can pick up things like maths and numbers really, really easily. I'm really good at things like that, and picking up patterns. But when it comes to language, that kind of language, it's just not my forte. I really struggle, it's something difficult for me. So, in saying that, having the opportunity to have his mum and his auntie here and to connect with them has been difficult for me. And it certainly has brought up its own level of loneliness. Now, whether that's come from being in the room and they're all speaking Bahasa and feeling left out, and to be quite fair, it happens a lot. I sit there and 90% of the time, it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. I'm happy that they're engaging. But there's that 10% of the time where I'm like, it would be nice to have a conversation with my partner's mother, with my partner's auntie, and ask some questions about their life growing up or Devi when he was younger. But I don't have that. Now, first things first, my partner only came out to his family 2.5, 3 years ago. Which is fantastic, phenomenal, and was so proud of him. It was a great experience. And after that was when I met his mother. Now, his mother is, his religion and his mother's religion is Muslim, and she's very much, very religious. She prays multiple times a day. Every time we go somewhere, we find her mashallah for her to be able to go and do the praying. So it's an important part of her life. And I know that in their religion, being gay is not something that is easily accessible or understood or even, good in whatever way you want to put that. And so I do understand that him coming out to her was a big thing. And for her to be at a place where she can come and meet me is a big thing. Now, obviously, I still get the sense that due to religious reasons, she would obviously still probably praying for her son to maybe one day come and pray the gay away and maybe find a woman and have kids and all that, because that's kind of what people want for their kids when they grow up in this world. I understand that. So I hold no ill will. I love the fact that she's coming in and seeing us and spending time with us, regardless of the fact that we can communicate. I know she's coming to see her son, which is fantastic. But I also know that she's not putting in the effort to be there. Of course, we can't communicate, but there are other things that can happen for her to kind of see who I am, see my heart, understand me. And I felt I really had to do what I could to show them that I am a kind and a loving and a funny and an interesting person, whether they can understand what I say or understand my body language or how I am, how I support their son or whatever it is. And so that part of it made me go back into the part of it that was really trying to prove something to someone else. And I think when I'm in that place where I try to prove who I am to someone else, there's a part of me that feels, am I good enough? Am I worthy of their love or their connection and things like that? And I go back into a place where I'm like, wow, that is a lonely feeling where you are in a place where you're trying to prove yourself to somebody else and you want their approval, you want some connection, and it may not be happening in the way that you hoped it would or possibly could. And it leads to some feelings of loneliness. Now, I know that there are different kinds of loneliness that we all go through. And I think the major one is in that loneliness of being different, whether that's growing up as a gay person in a world that isn't, predominantly for you, and struggling with that internally and knowing that because you're different, there is a sense of not being understood or not being seen or not being heard. And some of that is from your own doing because you're not letting anyone in. But there's also a sense of that, like, if I let someone in, am I going to get hurt? So there's a loneliness of being different. And in this case, with my partner and his family, the difference is I can't speak the language. I can't understand the experiences that they have had growing up completely different. And now they've can't get a chance to come to Bali. And let me tell you, like, they're coming from very humble beginnings. I'm not saying that they're poor, but they're not in a position that they would ever probably be able to afford to go and travel somewhere outside of the village. And of course, at this stage of our life, we support his mother financially because, his father has, been gone for a number of years now. I never met his father. It happened before I met my partner, but we help to support and make sure that she's okay, right? And so in saying that, like, anything that we do, or we pay for, right? So we bring you out here, and so in doing so, there's that, like I said, we're bringing someone out of a complete into it to see something different for their son than they would have been able to see. So, but the son has businesses, the son has a house, the son is a life. Those are the things that probably we want her to be able to see and experience and see that, like, her son is doing really well in life, and that's something important. So in saying that, that was achieved, but the fact that the loneliness that I feel of being different and not fitting in, there's that loneliness that was coming up for me in this experience. And it's hard to communicate that to my partner without him feeling a little bit overwhelmed or stressed out, or that, maybe I'm saying, because he's touchy around his family being here, and, the whole thing is, it's difficult, and so for us, throughout the experience, it also created some loneliness within the relationship, because there's a part of me that is 100% trying to be supportive of him and having his family here and knowing what that means and how difficult that is on an emotional level, as well as also, like, the stuff that can cause, right? When we're paying for everything happily, and other things aren't necessarily happening great, finances with parts of the business, that can order some stress in, right? And you start thinking about things, and then, you want to do this or you do that, but then, you're questioning the logistics of it and the cost of everything. So it can be difficult. So, in some regards, I bared certain weights on my own without having the conversation, because I wanted him to not be part of the stress that I'm thinking in regards to those things. And I guess all of these are solvable things, right? But when it happens, it also creates some friction and some distance, because I don't want to say, look, oh, maybe we should do this, or have you asked your family if they even want to do that? Because there are times when, he just wanted to show his family an experience, but they didn't really want to do it. And so we're spending his money on something that I knew that they wouldn't like. And so for me, it was causing me some internal things, but I couldn't say it. And so you see what I'm talking about, when there can be some loneliness within a relationship, because in the moment you can't say something, or you don't feel like you want to say something because you don't want to upset them or cause any more overwhelm or stress, and so you're going through it, and so there's a loneliness between you and him because you're not able to have the conversation or get on the same page about something, because again, you're trying to think about them and their feelings and whatnot. So in your relationship, we definitely have moments where we're going to have loneliness there. Now, if I look at it across our relationship, you have a good relationship. We have a great relationship. We speak about a lot of things, but there are definitely a lot of areas as well where I won't go to him for certain things, and vice versa. He won't come to me because we did grow up very differently, and how we see things can be very different at times. Now, I'm not saying that we can't talk about the things that are different, right? Because of course we can. But what I'm trying to get at is there are times when you're trying to express something and maybe you're looking for something from someone else, but if they don't understand it or get it in the way that you want to, then maybe you're not necessarily getting the thing that you need. And so sometimes you go somewhere else to a different friend or, a therapist or whatever it is that you would need to talk about that thing so that they will understand you in that way. And that's why what I find special, when it comes to my coaching is that like all the people that I have coached, especially the one-on-one people, what they connect with me about is that I have a similar experience to them. Now, I'm not saying that's just because I'm gay, right? I'm saying it because of lots of different things that I've shared and they can relate to those things. So then they go, okay, this person can help me, right? So the same thing might happen as well in the relationship, in the sense that you're going to get things that they're going to support you and help you in these needs. And there's going to be areas where you can't, right? Me being a coach, I also know that like I can't, I've done training in counseling and all of the things, right? So I understand that there are people who are going to be able to support you and understand what that looks like to support you. And there are also going to be people who try their best, but they don't have the skill set. And so ultimately, it's not worth it in a sense. Like I will bear that alone. And in saying that, I would feel lonely at points because of that. Because we don't have that level of it always where I can tell you everything and feel like I'm getting my needs met, right? Because it's not about hiding things. It's more about being able to be vulnerable in a way where someone sees you, hears you, understands you, gets you, and you then feel, okay, supported in that regard. Whereas sometimes, and I know I can be like this as well, especially when it comes to my partner, is that what you're looking for is to feel heard, but sometimes you can go into fix it mode. And so if I'm sharing something with my partner in a way where I just want to be heard, he'll sometimes want to offer me solutions, and vice versa. I will do the same. And in that regard, it can feel lonely because you're in a moment going, I just want you to understand me, and you're trying to fix me. That's what it sounds like sometimes, right? And I will do the same. And so there's a part of me that's really trying my best to actually overcome that. But I also know that it's different. Like if it was my client, there's a barrier, there's something different. I know what my role here is with you. But when you have all these blurred lines of what the role is in your relationship and in your life, it can be very different, which is why I would never coach a friend or a partner, right? I don't want to be that for you, right? Because I can't be that for you because I can't be impartial. I know all of the things. And so when I know all the things, I already have some bias towards what I think you should do. And it shouldn't be about what I think you should do. It's about figuring out what you think you should do. And again, that's why I'm not going to coach a friend or a close friend. It is because I've coached some people I've worked with in the past or had relationships with, relationship in the sense of like a colleague or an acquaintance, but not someone who would be like a close friend. So anyway, the point is that there is going to be loneliness that exists inside of relationships, and it can't be denied. And I think the point that I really want to talk about today around loneliness is that I thought for a very long time that I had to work harder and harder and harder on on the feelings of why I was feeling lonely in order to overcome those feelings of loneliness, and that I would never be lonely again, because I struggled for many, many years with being lonely. Now I grew up, yeah, and our family moved around. Like I was born in Canada, we moved to England, we moved to Australia, and throughout those experiences, those places are very different. So in ways that I grew up and moved around, and of course, being gay, I struggled to make any close friends. Now, I definitely had friends in like, oh, you had a friend who was playing soccer with you, or a friend who was in that class with you, but not as in a friend like a friend I could talk to or share anything with, especially about who I am. I didn't have any of that, and so in order for me, I grew up and I felt a lot of loneliness, being the only gay in the village. You know, knowing that like not only did I feel like I was the only gay person in my school, and I was hiding this thing I was getting bullied for on a consistent basis. And before I even understood what that meant, I'd go into the workplace, and again, I'd be the only gay person in the workplace. And this is years and years of workplaces until my final year job in corporate. Every other place, I was the only gay person in the office, and I was flamboyantly gay, right? And so it wasn't like I was like, this person who was in the closet. Once I came out, I've jumped out. I jumped off the bridge, and I dived 10 feet down into the water, and I was ready for it, because I'd struggled so much without having any like life, to the point where like I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd hide in my room, go out, go to work, come home. And then when I came out, and I met all these other people. I went from no friends to a million friends, and in able to do that, like I was out all the time because I didn't want to ever come home to that place where I felt extremely lonely. So when that happened, I became a people pleaser. I became a perfectionist. I became all these things in order to be the best person, so that I would have friends, so that I wasn't feel lonely, because that's what I thought I needed to have, right? And so there's that loneliness there when it comes to, you know, how we create ourselves, because I chose a lot of the things that I have. I chose to accept myself. I chose this path. I chose this path. I chose this career. I chose that job. I chose that friendship, right? And when we're going about creating ourselves, there's a part of you that's like, you know, some people you're going to connect with, and some people you're not going to connect with. And so I think I've had this thing throughout my life where a lot of people goddamn annoy me. They annoy the shit out of me. I can't stand them. And if I find something that icks me, I don't want to be around this person. And so like I can be very like, ugh, and that's a part of my personality that some people could say a flaw. It could be something that I like, I've also gone to a point where I'm comfortable and happy and enjoy my own time. Right. But just because I enjoy my own time doesn't mean I don't want to have connections or find people that I can spend time with, because I feel like there's that, of course, enjoyment of your own time, but there's also, you know, sometimes you do it because that's the only option. And I'm not saying that because I have my partner. We spend a lot of time together. I have some really close friends here in Bali that we spend a lot of time together. But I also spend time on my own. But I'm also looking for a few more connections in different ways, because, not everyone meets your needs. And so when I say the loneliness that we create ourselves, it's because as I'm navigating through life, and as I'm growing and going in different ways, people are going to come in and out of my life. Now, when I got sober and I changed my party ways, because I was partying for over a decade, going out all the time, getting drunk and going on this, because they didn't want to be home alone, right? So I went from that to realizing that, well, like I can't do this anymore. I need to make some shifts. I'm gonna kill myself, right? In a sense of like, I was at that point where like it was becoming too much. And so when I made the shifts and changes, I realized that so many of the friendships that I thought were closest to me, they were just built on alcohol or partying or going out or mutual, not wanting to be alone. And that's okay. That's cool. Because also there was times throughout these years where they were something more important to me. But as I realized and stepped out of that world, I realized that not everyone came with me. And so there's that loneliness of growth, right? As I grew and I started to understand who I was and what was going on in me, and as I became more of myself, the smaller my circles became. Like I said, I went from someone who had zero friends to a million of friends to now really a handful of friends. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, in a sad way. I'm saying that's life. But I'm saying that in the sense of like there's a loneliness to that, because as I lost a lot of those friends throughout the years, that was tough. That was really tough, because, like I said, some of those people were the nearest and dearest people I thought I'd be best friends with for the rest of my life. But when I gave up the drinking, some of them wanted me to get drunk and put me in situations that caused me to almost break my sobriety. Some people just didn't invite me out anymore. Some people didn't have time for me. Well, sometimes when we met up, they're drinking, I'm not, and it wasn't fun for me. And I realized that, hey, I had to shift heel, I had to go there. And then ultimately, within that year, I ended up deciding that I would leave my career in the corporate world where I had a team of 300 people. And then I was going to move to Bali. So imagine having this career where all day, every day, someone needs your attention and wants you, and so you've got all these connections, like whether it's your own manager or here's the CEO, one of the, the owners of the company, or it's your team where you've got like all these people who are relying on you to guide them and lead them in directions, or you have to be something for the hundreds of people that are, looking up to you as well, right? And then you come home and you want to go out and have dinner and this because of distress or drink and blah, 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 blah. And then you cut all of that stuff out. You end up leaving your job. You move to Bali where you knew one person out of everyone in Bali, and you weren't even that close to them. You never met them in real life before. You only met them online on Zoom because, as I evolved, I started connecting with other people who were like me because I had gone to coaching, right? And so all of the coaching people I met were in masterminds. And so I'd have all these Zoom calls with people. I became really close with a lot of people. But I realized that, like, as I turn off the screen that I'm on right now, no one's here. Or that one person that I now met was here in Bali. And that was the only person I knew. So I went from having all of these connections to pretty much having just screen time. And then I had to create a whole new life for myself. I had to go and meet new people. I ended up going online and going on lots of grinder dates and hookups because I wanted to connect, because I was like alone. And I felt like really alone for the very first time, but I was also okay. I wasn't upset with it, but I also was like, I want to go out and explore and live life a bit, because I didn't do that as much, especially in those last number of years. And so I was like, I'm going to meet people and see where it's at. Like, and I was just all about having a good time and connecting with people. So I went on dates, I hooked up with people. I met someone at the gym, or I was living in in a guest house. And so you'd start to connect with people. But then I started to realize that, like, I'm going to get into the old ways where I have a million friends, but they're also not that close and not people I'm on the same page. So I went from coming here, knowing no one pretty much, to meeting a million people, connecting, and then trying to figure it out, and then kind of weeding the ones out. Because again, also here in Bali, the people that you meet, not everyone stays very long. People in Bali come for 3 months, 6 months, and then they go off somewhere else. Like, this is their little holiday, or their gap year, or their year from chaos, and they've taken a year off work, and then they go back to their life, Whereas I've been here for 5 years, so there's not a lot of people. And so I'm grateful that I've got a really, really close friend, Cass, who she's been living here longer than me, and we see each other often. She comes over to my house, I go to her restaurant, I go to her house, we meet at Emma when we do the sauna and the steam room, we have massages, all the things, right? We're good friends. So we do a lot of things together. So I've got that connection, but I've also been trying to connect and meet up with other people who are also part of the queer community in ways that isn't about cooking up, because it's easy to meet new gay people when you're someone who's in the dating scene and you're ready for this or you're ready for that. And of course, yes, I do have a open relationship, and we do meet up with people from time to time, but I'm not someone who's on there constantly looking for a room, right? Because I've got my partner and I've got my intimacy and my needs are met there, right? And so when I'm meeting someone in that regard, it's usually for one thing. So I've been trying to now meet people in a way where it is a friendship in connection, and that, but it's difficult in that sense. It's not impossible, of course, but it's difficult, and so I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to get that way for myself, because I want that. There's the loneliness of being different, there's the loneliness of becoming yourself, there's the loneliness inside of relationships, there's the loneliness that we are creating for ourselves, especially when I'm saying that most people annoy me and I pull myself away from that. I want this, but sometimes it's difficult. So I have to also get out of my own way if I'm really trying to do that, because I struggle. I do get in my own way, and I know we all do. And that's why we are looking for what we're looking for. And again, it can be lonely along the path, because we are complex human beings. I know I am. And I know that, like, I say I want these things, but my actions can be against that, because it can feel too difficult at times to go and put yourself out there, or you say, is it worth it? And like I said, struggling to figure out, is it worth it? Because again, I am content, I am happy, but again, connection is important for me, and I am longing for some deeper connections. I used to have a friend here in Bali, and she was another coach, and we used to have a lot of deep connections about helping people, and I could talk about certain things that were going on in my business, and she would cheer me on in that regard because she understood it. Now, I missed that connection in a sense, but for those moments. But ultimately, I found out that the friend wasn't really a friend, that they were lying about a lot of different things, And, a story I can get into another time. And we no longer became friends because of the things I found out about who she is. That's the hard thing about putting yourself out there, is that you can get hurt. And then because of that hurt, you can put up walls. That's happened to, again, when I found out that all these friends that I thought were really going to be friends for the rest of my life aren't in my life anymore. I put up a huge wall, and I came to Bali with some of those walls up. And I've slowly unraveled them, but then in other ways I put them up, especially when you get yourself into a relationship and you get comfortable, and this person becomes your whole world. You can do that. Now I understand that I'm in a position that it's okay to meet other people, it's okay to build other connections, but also I have to put the work in. I have to really see that these things are an issue for me. Like I said, I say that most people annoy me, but it's not the truth. It's not the truth that most people annoy me. There are people that annoy me, but also there are people that I don't give a chance to, because again, I'm saving myself from hurt, right? So I'm also at that point where I realize that there's a loneliness that never truly disappears, because I don't believe it's meant to. I believe the loneliness is kind of like an emotional state, and it's similar to like anger or happiness or fear or, contentment. They're all state of minds, but oftentimes you're not in them forever, right? They come and go as you navigate and you regulate yourself. Now, I could be lonely in a room full of people, or I can be completely content on my own. Those are both truthful experiences that I have, right? But there's also the understanding that loneliness isn't about never feeling lonely. It's about what can this teach me? An understanding of the kinds of loneliness, what is happening here, right? Because like I said, I could be with my partner and his family, and they're having a deep connection. I can see them laughing and joking, and I can appreciate that, but I can also be like, it would be nice if I could, contribute here. I could be a part of this conversation. So I guess it's okay to have both things happening at the same time, because I desperately do want the deeper connection. But again, people will know the shit out of me, right? So it's about me understanding that I have the wall. There is this paradox. How much of my loneliness am I creating? But also, how much am I just also understanding that I have to accept some of the experiences that happen? I can either really work hard to become, an expert in understanding Bahasa Indonesia, or accept that this is the situation that it is and just enjoy it for what it is. They're having fun, they're connecting. That's the main thing, So the truth today is, I don't need everybody to understand me, but really what I still want is to be deeply known by the right people. I still get lonely at times. I think I probably always will. But maybe that's just not something that I need to fix anymore. Maybe sometimes loneliness is simply telling me that I just still want to be known. I still want deeper friendships. And it's okay to want something and not have it, and long for it and work towards it. And that despite all of the walls that I've built and all the times that I've said people annoy the shit out of me, some part of me still wants to let people in. And maybe that's actually a beautiful thing, because I haven't given up on connection. I'm just still figuring out how brave I'm willing to be to find out.